Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to OAA Now. Here I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger around the OAA, the host of Last Three Brain Cells, and the host of Queen Taormina's on Orion. I'd like to welcome those watching on Local Voice on SoundCloud and those watching Orion Television. A lot to look at here this week here on the podcast. A lot of news around the league this past week. So we're going to break those down. We're going to start with our main story. We got a lot of football news. We got boys basketball news as well. We're going to break all those down on this episode here of the podcast. So without further, let's start with our main story here. Let's go to football first. Of course, we talked about the Oxford job for a couple weeks now. Of course, Zach Lyons stepped down to become the new coach, become an assistant with the Denver Broncos under Coach Sean Payton. Oxford went with they decided and they named the new varsity football coach this past week. Of course, they went in-house with their coach, naming Trevor Potts as the new head coach. Potts, of course, takes over for Coach Zach Lyons. The Oxford Community Schools Instagram, X pages, also their Facebook pages also confirmed it. Also, Oxford's assistant athletic director, Brandon Galecki, also confirmed it. Gordelli, he also confirmed it. So, and you look at, of course, the move, obviously, for Potts, this is a big opportunity for him. Last few years under Lyons, he was the defensive coordinator at Oxford. He also spent 15 years at Rochester Adams learning the Veer system under Coach Tony Petrito. Really interesting story here. Of course, on the Twitter page, Oxford Athletics, they wrote down, Oxford football is proud and excited to announce Coach Trevor Potts is our head varsity football coach. Coach Potts will continue to uphold the culture of leading students to become great young men and to lead the program's successes on the field. Congratulations, Coach Potts. That was the feed from the Oxford Twitter page. So you really look at, of course, we know Potts' history is at the Red. As we mentioned, of course. I really think when you look at the what got Potts the job at Oxford, you got to look at, no doubt, that playoff game. The playoff game when Oxford went to Davison and won at Davison 21-14. Holding a high-octane Cardinals offense to 14 points. That says a lot. That really says a lot. And obviously leading the Wildcats to the Red Championship in school history last season. But I really think, honestly, and I mentioned this, the game at Davison really set the tone and was the main reason why he got the job at Oxford. So you really look at it. I know there was a lot of people going why they didn't go outside the box? Why didn't go after an Oxford alum like a Billy Keenest or Coach Brown and all that? I mean, you kind of got to look at, obviously, they decided to go within the program, within what got their success. And for them, it was, you kind of look at it, you look at the, you got to look at the success. Obviously, what Oxford had was their defense was very good last year. There's really not much changeover, with Coach Potts taking over the program. There really isn't. Now, there's going to have to be some sort of transition. Now, you got to wonder what's going to happen offensively with Oxford with Coach Potts taking over. I don't expect the defense to change under Potts. I don't expect it to. The offense is going to be the big question because you look at what Oxford football's been the last few years. You look at, of course, what the Wildcats have done was you kind of really think about what Oxford is. You think about pound the rock. You think about running the football. You kind of think about That's always been Oxford's mantra, has been pound the rock. Will they go that route? And you look at, of course, that's a big question. You look at with Oxford because Potts does know the Veer offense. Obviously, being at Adams, learning under Coach Tony Petrito. So he does know the Veer offense. So, will Oxford run some Veer? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they run some Veer. I mean, they got a running quarterback. I mean, I know Jack Hendricks very well. He not only can throw the football, but he's also, he's also one of the best runners in Oakland County. He can throw the ball. He can throw it. But when you look at the Wildcats, and you look at what they have with Hendricks at quarterback, they're going to use everything he's got. His arms are the best in state. His legs are solid. So you really look at, the question is, who's Hendricks going to throw the ball to? That's a big question. And then the running attack, the running game. You look at, of course, who's going to be the one running the ball. Preston Wilder obviously is one of the best players in this league. I expect to have a monster year this year. I expect to have a monster year. So you really look at it with Oxford, you really look at it here, you have a quarterback and you have a running game. But the big questions for Oxford is going to be on the defense side of the ball. So you really look at, with Oxford, the line's going to be a question mark. Defense will be a question mark. Passing game's a question mark. So, what's it going to be? You really look at with Oxford, with Potts, he's a defensive guy. But where's the offense going to be? That's the big question. That's the big question for Oxford is how's the offense going to look? Is it going to be the same offense that, that Oxford had under Coach Zach Line? Is it going to be something similar to Bud Riley? Or could Oxford go all air raid, spread it out? They had the passer. And one of the best single callers in the estate. So, a lot of questions with Oxford. A lot of questions. And then you look at the division Oxford's in, and you look at the schedule they got to play. Open up a Heartland week 1. That's very difficult. That is going to be difficult. And then you close out week 9 with Macomb, Dakota. And that's not mentioning the red. You're going against West Bluefield. Now, West Bluefield, I don't think it's going to be as strong as they've been in years past. I don't think they're going to be as good as they've been in years past. Clarkston, obviously, they're going to be solid. They do return both Bowman twins. Alex Wachensko, Adam, quarterback. Defense is a complete liability over there, Clarkson. It is an absolute liability. Lake Orion, questions at quarterback. Got the running game. Offensive line looks solid. Defense is a big question mark for Lake Orion. And then I think the best team in that division is Adams. Adams, they got a lot back. They got a lot of proven weapons back. Proven experience. Quarterbacks back in Ryland Waters. They lose Mateo Humber. That's a big loss. So, big question marks for Oxford when you look at the division that this team's in. They got a difficult schedule. The schedule alone should get Oxford into the playoffs. When you look at the teams who's got difficult schedules in this division, Lake Orion's got a very difficult schedule. Clarkston, I don't know about Belleville. I mean, honestly, I really thought the schedule kind of hurt Clarkston last year. When you look at, of course, their non-conference, playing Bloomfield Hills and Troy Athens. And then you look at, Adams. They got to play Adams and Stony. They got to play Rochester and Stony Creek. I think Rochester will be better this year. Stony Creek is very scary. Stony Creek is going to be very scary. So, you kind of look at Oxford's schedule and you say to yourself, that schedule alone is going to get you in the playoffs. There's so many, but they've got to win games. They got to win some games. So, you really look at the higher of Potts. I know some people in the community are not happy about it, but there's some that are happy about it because it's a big deal. The question that I have here for Oxford is going to be is, how will the players respond to Potts? How will they respond to him? That's the $1 million question. You have the quarterback. You have the running game. Question's going to be is, how's your defense going to look? How's your receivers going to look? And, last season for Oxford was a really special year for this team. It was a really special year for them. I know they went 6-3, had a tough loss to Macomb, Dakota, lost to Clarkston. And then, of course, when they went in the playoffs, they upset Davidson, obviously. And I think that Davidson game was the one that got past the job. Honestly, when you look at that game with when you look at that game with when you look at that game, I mean, with Davidson, I just think that obviously Luke Johnson had a monster game for them, but really the difference in that game was that defense. And I think that's the reason why Potts got the job at Oxford, got the head coaching job, was because of that game against Davidson. So that to me is the most important thing. I mean, obviously, you look at transition periods, they got to go through it during the season. And they're going to go through it. But you look at Oxford's JV program last year, they were solid. They were solid. But anytime you return the quarterback, you return one of the best passers in the game in Jack Hendricks, you're going to be in that conversation. You're in that conversation. And we know he's got an arm. And you look at Preston Wilder, obviously he was the understudy of Luke Johnson. And look what he did. Look what he did. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt to Potts. I will be curious to see what offense he runs. We go more of that pound the rock, what Oxford's known for. We go more of the NFL type offense. Or we just say, you know what? We got a quarterback. He can throw the ball. We can throw air raid. We can go all air raid. So there's a lot of questions with Oxford. A lot of questions. Especially whom he chooses as the offensive coordinator. I think that is going to be the key position this offseason, is who is going to be the offensive coordinator at Oxford. And then obviously with Potts, who is going to be his defensive coordinator? Will he take on the role as that? I mean, obviously you look at head coaches, you look at Lake Orion coach Chris Bell, he's also the team's offensive coordinator. You look at Zach Hilbers, he's also quarterback coach over there at West Bloomfield. So there is a lot of questions with Oxford. There's a lot of questions with this move. There is a lot of questions. So when I look at this hire, my thoughts on this hire really, I know there's some in the community that's really upset about this hire. And I totally get why they're upset. I totally get it. But there are those that say, you know what? We don't need to clean house. We don't need to just go a complete makeover. We don't need to just completely change it over. We don't really need that. And I know I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be, really, because I've seen, Oxford, you look at Oxford, it's one of the toughest jobs in the entire state. It really is. I mean, we all know what happened with the tragedy. We all know what happened. So this is going to be really interesting to see how Coach Potts handles this. It'll be really interesting to see how the kids buy into a system, and not just the kids in the varsity level. On the varsity level, it's the JV level, it's the freshman level, it's the middle school level, even the youth levels. So you look at Oxford, that whole community with football is interconnected. Really is. With the youth levels, the middle school, freshman, JV, varsity. So I'll be curious to see how Potts handles that. Really curious to see how he does with that. Because, you look at Oxford. Oxford's one of the, it's one of the biggest enrolled schools in Oakland County. You look at Oxford, you got to compare it with Clarkston, Lake Orion. We know those two communities. Really football-hungry towns. But you look at it there, their youth levels, their middle school levels, their sub-varsity levels, all of it interconnected. All of it interconnected. So, it'll be interesting to see how Potts fits into the system at Oxford. It'll be interesting to see how Jack Hendricks fits into his system. It'll be interesting to see what type of direction Potts takes this team. Because you look at what Line did, and the Line had a very senior-heavy team last year. You look at this upcoming season, Oxford's going to be a little bit younger. But anytime you return the quarterback, you return the leader, you return one of the best passers in Oakland County, in Jack Hendricks, you're going to be okay. You're going to have a very difficult schedule. You're going to have a very difficult schedule. So, it's going to be interesting to see how Potts handles this. I'll pretty much have an interview with Coach Potts on the podcast this summer. We'll talk Oxford football. That'll be for sure. But there's some strengths, but there's some concerns as well. So we'll see what happens. We're gonna see what happens. But Very interesting choice for Oxford, going with Coach Potts, going with in-house. Last season, as mentioned, being the former defensive coordinator. So it'll be interesting to see what type of direction they go. But when you return arguably your best player in Jack Hendricks, who's the quarterback, who can create for himself, he can create for others, one of the best passers in Oakland County, you're going to be in good shape. So we'll see what happens. Now let's go from football to boys basketball. You look at this move. You really look at this past week, A&T coach Terrence Porter stepped down as coach of the Warriors. D-Zone confirmed that Porter stepped down. I don't know why he stepped down coaching the program. I don't know why he did that. But you kind of look at with A&T. He was 10-36 in the last 2 years at A&T. 20-50 in 3 years coaching the program. So Porter kind of felt like, it was time for the program to go into a different direction. And you look at the Warriors. You look at A&T, and you just think to yourself, what happened to this program? What happened to A&T? I mean, Porter came to A&T from Farmington, took a year off, and then decided to get back into coaching again at A&T. Now, for Porter, I know he teaches at Ferndale. So, my question is, does Porter go and take a shot at the Ferndale girls basketball job? That is open. So it would be really interesting if Porter did get the girls basketball job at Ferndale. Now, there's a lot of problems at Ferndale, especially with the girls program. But it would be very interesting because I know that Porter's got a really good relationship with Coach Juan Rickman. Rickman's the athletic director at Ferndale, but he's also the boys basketball coach. So you kind of think, to think about it, if hypothetically Porter became the coach at Ferndale for the girls, that would be a really interesting move because Porter is a teacher there. He does a really good job there. And you look at with Porter, he can make some noise. I mean, if he were the coach there at Ferndale, he can make some noise there. But what he did at Southfield, they were an up and down team. Really up and down. When he was at Farmington, Porter really, they went up and down a lot. He did deliver results for Farmington. He did a really good job for Farmington. He really, really did a good job for them. So now you look at with Porter leaving, where does the A&T boys basketball program go from here? There are some big-time questions. Big-time questions with A&T. You really look at with A&T is you got to really, find somebody who can stabilize the ship there at A&T and deliver results. Because you look at A&T, for them, it's about delivering results. That's really what it is with them. Porter was 30 games under 500. And it was rough for them. It was really, really rough for A&T. It was, they were up and down this year. Really up and down. So when I look at A&T next season, there's some question marks. And we don't know what division they're in. We don't know what division they're going to be in. But when I look at the downgrade in this division, losing Porter, there's some big-time questions. But then where does Porter go from here? Where does he go from here? Does Porter, does he take another year off? Does he take over the Ferndale girls' job? Does he follow his brother Tawan at Harper Woods and be an assistant? He's got so many options. He's got options. He's going to be one of the best coaches in this game. Really is. And, for him, it just didn't work out at Southfield. It just really did not work out. And I know Terrence very well. He's a really, really nice guy. One of the best minds in the game. But also, you kind of think about it. He needed a break from the game. He needed a break. So, I'll be curious to see where Terrence goes. I'll be very curious to see where Terrence goes. So that'll be something to really, really keep an eye on with A&T. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So let's look at from Terrence. So when you look at next year for A&T, a lot of questions. There is a lot of questions with A&T. Does the Warriors, where do they go with their coach? Because it looks like they're going to go outside the box. Program strength is a big concern for A&T. It really is. Does A&T go in-house? It's a possibility. Girls basketball coach and athletic director Shakita Coltrane will certainly have some options when choosing the next coach. She will have a ton of options. So that is the big question that I have with A&T. Big question. And then you don't know what division they're going to be in. You don't know what division they're going to be in. So, a lot of questions, though, linger. A lot of questions for A&T. A lot of questions. So, we'll see what happens. Do they go in-house or do they go out-house? So, that's a big question. Now, let's go from A&T. Let's talk about Berkeley. Just recently, of course, Berkeley boys basketball coach Joe Sermo stepped down at Berkeley. After 10 years coaching the Bears, and 15 years overall at his alma mater, Sermo decided it was time. It was time to leave. Time to go. Time to step down and have somebody new take over the program. Tough decision. Really, really tough decision. He said this on X. This was a really tough decision, but I'm at peace with it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to lead the program that was a big part of my upbringing. Coaching basketball is a way for me to feed my inner competitive spirit, but I quickly learned there was more to just winning basketball games. The ability to impact so many young lives was what this was about. The relationships built over the past 15 years at Berkeley High School has made me a better person. Thank you to the numerous assistant coaches on my staff over the years and the wonderful athletic directors Lori, Taylor, and Matt that I've worked under. The athletic trainer Jess, teachers and administrators, Berkeley High School boosters, students, parents, fans, my wife, sons, and family members that have been so supportive of me. I will miss competing against the great coaches that I've had the honor of being in this coaching fraternity with. And, and then obviously, he also said, my goal was to lead the program in a better place when I first inherited in 2016. I'm confident we have done that, and now Berkeley boys basketball is ready for the next leader to put their stamp on this wonderful, prideful program. Change is healthy. I'm excited to be in the stands as a fan and as a dad next one, rooting for Sam and Drew and their teammates. Thank you all, and God bless. So that says something right there. That really says something. Basketball is a really hard game to coach. It really is. It takes a lot out of you. It really does take a lot out of you. Coaching, and especially if you've been coaching longer, a really long time. What Thermo's done. Coaching 10 years. 15 overall. Of course, we know Berkeley, Thermo played for the great Steve Rhodes. We know how good Rhodes was coaching at Berkeley. One of the best in the game. And for Thermo to take over, that program. And obviously having a Berkeley alum. Thermo was a Berkeley alum. Thermo was 94 and 96 in his 10 years coaching the Bears. So he's done a really nice job with that program. He's had some great years. Really good years. Obviously, you look at Berkeley and you think about the success that the Bears have had, the success that Berkeley's had. You really got to credit Coach Joe Thermo. And you got to look at how his team not only performed on the court, but also off the court. And you look at the character that Thermo had with these kids. Obviously, you look at with Coach Thermo, you think about his one word is class. He's had a lot of class with this team. A lot of integrity, a lot of respect. That says a lot when you look at Berkeley. That says a lot. So you really think about it with what Thermo's done. Obviously, you look at the division that they've been in, whether it's been in the blue, in the gold, maybe even sometimes in the white. Thermo has seen it all. He's had to deal with the rivalry with Royal Oak. He's had to deal with, of course, having to play Detroit Renaissance, or a UAD Jesuit, or an Oak Park. He's had to deal with it all. And at a place like Berkeley, it's a really tough place to coach, considering where they are geographically. You have Ferndale to its southeast. You have Royal Oak to its east. Then you have Troy Athens to its north. There's northwest. Oak Park is really close by to Berkeley. And they've had a lot of really good basketball teams. And Sermo's had to play. He wasn't afraid to take his teams north to play Oxford or to play Lake Orion. I mean, Sermo, I know Berkeley fans don't like having to go up north, to play those two teams. I get it. But Sermo did a really nice job with this program. And you look at the numbers, yes, some years he's had really good years, some years not so good years. But he's done a remarkable job boys to men. He did a heck of a job with that in his 10 years coaching. Getting him ready for everyday life. And I think that's where, you look at with basketball. You look at with coaching. I mean, you look at it. I mean, you really look at it. I mean, you're getting your kids ready to go out in the real world. You're getting them ready to go out in the real world. So, you're getting your kids, you look at, there's maybe like the few, maybe like less than 1% are going to go and play college basketball. And then very, very few go out and play in the NBA. Now we're in this NIL thing and all that. But what Sermo's done with the kids that he's had, he has gotten his kids ready for life after basketball. And that says a lot when you can do that. When you can do that, and you can say to your kids, we might not have had the greatest year, but you know what? I'm going to get you ready for life after basketball. Because you're going to go out to college. You might not play sports. You might not play. But to get a job, to get a degree in college, and that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And I give Coach Joe Sermo a ton of credit for doing that at Berkeley. You look at the job that he's done at Berkeley, and you say to yourself, I'm gonna have a bunch of hardworking kids battle and compete every day. They will work their tails off. And that's what Sermo installed at Berkeley. That's what he installed there for 10 years, 15 years total. That's what he learned from Coach Steve Rhodes. And he installed what he learned from Coach Rhodes and installed it to his system. I mean, everybody in the Berkeley community knows who Coach Steve Rhodes is. We know what he's done over at Berkeley. We know what he's done over there. He did a really magnificent job over there. So, when you look at Berkeley, looking at the future for Berkeley, heading into next year, do they stay in-house with their next hire? That would be very interesting if they did. There are a couple candidates that I can think of that they can go in-house with. I do remember the girls hire when they went with Clay Shaver. I really liked the Shaver hire. I really did. Do they go that similar route? Do they go and find an assistant at Berkeley? Do they find an assistant who was very familiar with Joe's system? And do they go in that direction? There's just so many things to do to go with if you're if you're the Bears. There's so many things. If you go outside the box, I don't know how that would go. I really don't know how that would go if you go outside the box. I really don't. I mean, you look at the direction Berkeley's went, particularly in the last, I think maybe the last 5 years, they've had to change coaches in football and both girls and boys basketball now. So you kind of look at the direction that they've been going. You look at the job that Shaver's done at Berkeley coaching the girls program. He turned that program. Obviously, you look at what Clay's done over there. He's turned Berkeley into a consistent power. Now, yes, they've had some years where they were like some up and down years. Obviously, you look at the year they went and upset Detroit Renaissance in the final couple in 2021 or 2022. And then they had a down year, and then Clay took over, and Berkeley's been really consistent. You look at the job that Coach Joe Sermo's done. Obviously, the postseason success was not there. But as I mentioned that with them, it was their, unfortunately for them, it's like they've had to run into Oak Park. They've had to run into Groves, Detroit Renaissance, UD Jesuit. All those teams that Sermo had to run into were very good teams. So it was going to be hard in the postseason either way for the Bears. It was going to be really hard for them either way. And then obviously with the football program at Berkeley, I mean, Casey Hume's taken over the program for Coach Sean Shields. I mean, Shields was really successful at Berkeley early on. I mean, they had a really good class. And then the last 2 years, they really struggled. So Coach Humes has had a challenge over there at Berkeley, getting his system in place, getting everything down over there. So that's going to be very interesting with Berkeley. That's going to be really, really, really interesting. So I will be curious to see where the Bears go with their next coach, because there is talent coming back at Berkeley. There is talent coming back. It's not like Coach Joe Sermo is truly gone from the program. He's still going to be there. His sons, Sam and Drew, are on the team. So he's just going to take a step back from coaching, going to be up in the stands cheering his sons on and his teammates. I mean, Berkeley is a really, really good job because of the job that Coach Joe Sermo's done. So it would be really interesting. If you look at right now, if I had to rank the basketball jobs right now that are open, you have Berkeley, Southfield, Arson Tech, and Ferndale Girls. I would say the best job of that group right now is Berkeley, because of the job that Sermo's done with the program. He did a really good job building that program and making it into a perennial power. I mean, this Berkeley team, this Berkeley program has been proven they can play some really good basketball. They have proven that because of the success that Coach Joe Sermo's done. They've proven it with the success that, the players have done for this team. They've done a wonderful job. So when you look at the Bears, you look at Berkeley, and you think about us, you look at the Bears and you say to yourself, whoever takes the job is going to be in line to have a really special year. Berkeley is a great job. It is a very, very good job. So I'll be curious to see how the coaching candidates are going to be for this job. Do I think they're going to be like what happened at Waterford Kettering? I don't know. I mean, I still am trying to figure that one out, how Rex Walters got the job at Kettering. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But Berkeley, it's a good area. Great area to teach. Great area. Great kids down there at Berkeley. You're going to have to get used to that rivalry at Royal Oak. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. Is whoever the new coach at Berkeley is going to be, going to have to get used to that rivalry at Royal Oak. But if it's somebody who knows that rivalry, then I don't really see that being a matter at all. I really don't. But the job that Coach Joe Sermos did at Berkeley, you gotta give credit where credit's due. And I think with the Bears, with Coach Sermo, the job that he's done, the character that he brought to the players, the honor that he brought to this team and to the program, you can't say enough. You got to give a lot of love to Coach Joe Sermo for what he's done. He's earned the respect of so many within the coaching community, the media, and obviously, I remember when he talked to me on my podcast for the start of the season, talking about the Bears. And, coming into the year, there were some question marks with this team, considering that they had a lot of players come out who really who took a year off. And they kind of really struggled this year, going 6-18. Really struggling. I think a lot of that was injuries that really doomed this team. So this team was really hurt with the injury bug. But when you look at this Berkeley team, this Berkeley program, Sermo really did a great job building the program from scratch and then getting it into a very, very good place. Now, I don't know how the OAA is going to align themselves when it comes to divisions. Could it be 3? Could it be 4? I don't know where Berkeley stands next year when it comes to the division. I don't know where they're going to stand. It would be really, really interesting to see how the Bears handle. If it's a 3 division, I don't know how they would match up. If it's a 4 division, it would be really, really interesting to see how this would go. It would be really interesting to see how it goes. So, we'll see what happens. We're going to see what happens. So, my thoughts on Coach Joe Sermo stepping down. Really sad that he's leaving coaching. But you got to give the man a lot of credit. He deserved to go out on top. He's left a legacy at Berkeley. He's done a wonderful job with the program. So it'll be really interesting to see whoever takes over the job at Berkeley. They're going to have some big shoes to fill. So it'll be really interesting to see how Berkeley's going to look next year in boys basketball. So I'd like to send out my congratulations to Coach Joe Sermo on a great coaching career at Berkeley. Also at Southfield to Coach Terrence Porter. Even though he struggled in 3 years at Southfield, we know what he's done, especially at Farmington. I wish both of them nothing but the best of luck in their future endeavors. And, I wish them nothing but the best. So I wish both of them the best of luck going forward. So now let's go from basketball. Let's go to the enrollment sheet. The MHA just released the enrollment sheet for football. Obviously, as I mentioned last week, you really look at the enrollment sheet, it's out. Obviously, and then of course football. Of course, they released theirs. Division One obviously is 1,400 and above. Obviously, you look at the teams there, based on football. You kind of look at some surprises. Obviously, I kind of had a feeling this would be the divisions. When you look at the teams that were in these divisions, Division One, obviously, it got Lake Orion, Clarkston, Oxford, Troy Athens, Rochester, Stony Creek, Adams, Farmington, West Bloomfield, and Bloomfield Hills. These are schools that have over 1,400 kids and above. Division Two, you have Royal Oak, Southfield Arts and Tech, Grove, Seaholm, Berkeley, North Farmington, Waterford, Mott, Oak Park, and Ferndale. Oak Park was in D3 originally, but they've opted to go up to D2. Ferndale, of course, as we mentioned, obviously, with the co-op program with Ferndale University, their numbers combined with Ferndale University, so they went up, I think they're around 1,100. So now they are at, so now they're going to be up in D2 for the playoffs, whereas in other sports, Ferndale and Ferndale U are split. They're going to be in Division 2 instead of, for in class, and Division 2 for basketball, for both girls and boys basketball, whereas in football, you're in D2 and you're a co-op. So that's going to be really interesting there. Division 3, Waterford, Kettering, and Avondale are both in there for D3. And then Division 4, Pontiac and Harper Woods are in there for Division 4. So when you look at the big news, and I know a lot of people been up at arms, a little bit shocked about some of them. There's a couple of teams I'm really shocked about when I look at the enrollment list. Obviously with Division 1, I'm not surprised with anybody in Division 1. I am a little surprised, honestly, that a team in Lapeer normally is a D1 team, but their enrollment numbers went down enough that they're in Division 2. So kind of that, it would be really interesting when it comes playoff time, to see where a Grand Blanc and Davison, do you bring Clarkston involved in that? Do you bring Oxford involved in that? Heck, do you put Lake Orion in that conversation? So that's really interesting to see how, so that was one of my biggest surprises was Lapeer going from D1 to D2. I was a little shocked about that. Other schools I was surprised about, Orchard Lake St. Mary's going up from D, they go back up to D2. Of course, they won the Division 2 state championship last year in football, which was, obviously we all know the Groves disaster. Of course, if you want to watch that rant, I do have it up on my on the YouTube site. So you really look at Orchard Lake St. Mary's going up to D2, Warren D. LaSalle staying in going to D3, which is interesting because then also Walled Lake Western's another team. I was surprised that they went up from D3 to D2. So that's really interesting there. So a couple of teams I was a little surprised about. Another team I'm surprised about, and this is the OAA, was Southfield Arts and Tech. Now, the reason why with A&T is obviously because the Warriors, 2 years ago, this was a team that won the Division I state championship. Now, it's a different team now with A&T now that Aaron Marshall's no longer there. He's at Birmingham Brother Rice coaching that program. And it's a completely different team over at A&T. So when I look at the Warriors, you know, they took a hit. They took an enrollment hit. You know what I mean? They went down from D1 to D2. It's really what it is. So now if A&T were to get in the playoffs, you know, they could be seeing maybe maybe Warren De La Salle, maybe an Orchard Lake St. Mary's, maybe or a North Farmington. I mean, they could see them. Or Groves or see them. They could seriously see them. Or maybe Oak Park. I mean, that's really what it is. Avondale, for them, they could be staring at Mason. Waterford Kettering, if they get in the playoffs. I mean, let's not forget Kettering missed out on the playoffs a year ago. They were one of the last teams in the playoffs. So, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It'll be really interesting to see how that goes. And then obviously Division 4, Harper Woods staying in there in Division 4. That's not a surprise. I think Harper Woods, they still got a chance to do some damage in Division 4. It's going to be a little bit tougher now, obviously, with Goodrich winning it all last season. Goodrich, we know how good that program's been. But when I look at Goodrich, you know, they did take a bit of a hit. I mean, they had a lot of team experience last year. So I'll be very – in Harper Woods, they do got a lot of experience coming back. So Harper Woods could be a really – it would not surprise me if Harper Woods got a shot to win the D4 state championship again next year. It would not surprise me. It really would not surprise me. We'll see what happens. See what happens. Final thoughts on this week's podcast. Obviously, a look at in football with Oxford. Obviously, I'd be curious to see how the Wildcats handle the offense with their new coach and Coach Potts, and Coach Trevor Potts. That's my biggest question with Oxford. They do have the quarterback in Jack Hendricks. The question for Hendricks is, who's he throwing the ball to? That's a big question. He is a proven quarterback, obviously. And then how will his defense look, especially now that he is the head coach? How's Oxford going to look heading into the Red this year? A lot of questions this year when you look at the Wildcats heading in the season. And then, obviously, the A&T and Berkeley both looking for new boys basketball coaches. We're also keeping an eye on the girls' basketball situation at Ferndale as well. So a lot to really keep an eye on as we go forward, heading into the final, heading into the heart of spring sports season. So we'll see what happens going forward. We're going to sign off here. Make sure you follow the blog at Sagamay4650blogspot.com for the latest information around the OAA. We're signing off here. Take care. God bless. And I will see you all next week, everybody. Take care and God bless all. God bless all.